You clear the last summer crop out of a bed, and you're left with bare soil. You could leave it empty until spring, but you may still have enough season left for another harvest. The mistake is planting before you check whether the bed is actually ready, and that one habit is what separates a second harvest from a wasted round of seed. But don't reach for the seed packet yet. Check the soil first. If it's ready, you may still have time for another crop. But which one makes sense depends on what's happening in that bed right now. Push your fingers a few inches down into the soil, right where you'd actually be sowing. The surface doesn't always tell you what the seed zone is actually like, so don't judge it from the top alone. Take a handful from that zone and squeeze it. If it holds together lightly but crumbles when you touch it, you're in a workable range. Dusty means too dry. Sticky and slick means too wet. What you're checking for is simple. Is it dry all the way through? Is it damp but the air's still properly hot? Or does it feel right with the night starting to cool? Each one points to a different next step. If the soil is dry below the surface, don't rush to sow. Restore moisture through the seed zone first. Damp but still hot means slow down and choose carefully rather than sowing the whole row. And soil that feels right, with cooler nights setting in, means you're in business. That's the bed that can actually hand you a second harvest. None of these three take more than a minute to tell apart once you've got your hand in the soil. And knowing which one you're standing in front of changes everything that follows. Start with dry. A mature summer crop has an established root system, pulling water from reserves a brand new seed never gets access to. A seed you sow today has nothing like that. It needs steady moisture right from the start, and that matters most in the first stretch after sowing. Water deeply enough to moisten the seed zone, not just the surface. A wet crust over dry soil underneath won't help a new seed establish. Damp but hot catches people off guard, because damp soil feels like a green light. It isn't necessarily one. If the soil is still very warm, some cool season crops may germinate poorly or unevenly, depending on the crop and variety, and lettuce, especially, can bolt before you get much of a harvest out of it. Adding more water won't fix that, since the water was never the problem here. The heat itself is. Even the right crop, sown too early into that heat, can spend most of its short window fighting the weather instead of actually growing. Sow a small test section. Choose a crop that handles the remaining heat better, or wait a few days for conditions to ease. And then there's the bed where the soil feels right, evenly moist without being soggy, days still warm, but nights starting to drop. That's the bed where a second crop can actually make sense. But here's the real test. Don't ask whether it's still warm enough outside. Ask whether that crop can actually finish before your growing window closes. That's where the days to maturity number on the packet becomes the thing that matters, matched against how much cool season you genuinely have left, not the date on a calendar. A rough gauge for that window is your average first frost date for the area, or if frost rarely factors in where you garden, the point where nights reliably stop climbing back into anything warm. Quick crops fit this gap because they need far less time to reach harvest than a full-size summer crop. A radish spends a much shorter part of its life building leaves and a root before it's ready to pull, which is why it can go from seed to harvest in a fraction of the time a summer crop needed. Something like chard or mustard greens works a little differently, since you're often harvesting leaves gradually rather than waiting for one single point of maturity, which gives you some flexibility if the season runs a bit shorter or longer than expected. That's why the shortest realistic maturity time on the packet matters so much here, more than almost any other decision you'll make about that bed. If you want a quick root crop, think radishes or suitable turnips. If you want leaves instead, chard, mustard greens, or mizuna give you more flexibility, and most of them handle a cooling bed just fine. What they don't all handle the same is lingering heat. Lettuce can bolt quickly when a hot stretch lingers, going bitter before it's given you much of anything. Chard and many mustard varieties handle that transition better. But varieties differ, so check the packet rather than assuming every mustard behaves the same way. If the packet lists heat tolerance or bolt resistance, use that information when comparing varieties, but still check the recommended growing conditions. Mizuna and other quick Asian greens sit somewhere in between, generally holding up better than lettuce, but still worth watching closely if the heat is dragging on. So the hotter it still is out there right now, the more I'd hold off on lettuce specifically. Before choosing, check exactly what the packet means by days to maturity, direct sowing or transplanting, and full-size harvest or baby leaves. Then give yourself some extra time, because fall growth usually slows. Between two crops that fit the window, take the one with more time to spare. If there are thick stems or root clumps left over from that old crop sitting right where you're planning to sow, clear them out first. Large roots and stems can make it harder to create an even seed bed, so pull the bigger pieces before sowing. A rake or a hand fork through the top few inches usually gets the row clean enough to work with. Small seeds especially need consistent contact with actual soil to germinate evenly, so a row full of leftover debris tends to come up patchy even when everything else about the bed is right. If the bed needs organic matter, this is also a good time to add finished compost to the surface before sowing. And if the numbers don't work, don't force it. Sometimes there simply isn't enough season left for a vegetable crop to finish, even the fast ones. If your nights are already dropping hard and every short cycle option you're weighing still runs past the expected first frost in your area, forcing seed into that gap mostly just burns time and seed for nothing. That's not a loss, though. It's a different kind of decision. Leaving the bed bare gives weeds an open space and leaves the soil exposed to winter weather. Depending on the choice, a suitable cover crop can protect the soil, add organic matter, or, with the right legumes, contribute nitrogen back into the system. Something like clover or field peas covers a lot of home gardens well, but climate and what you plan to grow there next spring should decide the exact choice, not just what's on the shelf. A suitable cover crop can leave the bed better protected than leaving bare soil exposed all winter. Temperature isn't the only thing changing now. Daylight is getting shorter too, and cooler temperatures plus less available light can slow growth as the season moves on. A crop that would have raced through its cycle in July can take noticeably longer to reach the same size once the days start shrinking, even with the soil and temperature otherwise cooperating. That's exactly why checking real days to maturity against how much daylight and mild weather is actually left matters more than trusting how warm it happens to feel outside on any given afternoon. Before you plant, make 3 checks: soil moisture, remaining growing time, and the crop's days to maturity. If they line up, plant it. If they don't, use a cover crop instead. An empty bed isn't the end of the season. It just means the next crop has to earn its place. If this helped you decide what to do with your empty bed, give the video a like, subscribe for more practical fall gardening tips, and share it with another gardener. And tell me in the comments what you just harvested and what you're thinking of planting next, since seeing what other people are working with usually helps everyone else reading through the comments too.